pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay? Cheryl, call the roll.
Dennis Gagnon is not here. Peter Lewis.
Here.
Maura O'Connell.
Here.
Neil Toman.
Here.
Heidi Wendell.
Here.
Neil Zuckerman.
Here. All right, good evening and welcome to the February installment of the Philipstown Planning Board. We have a medium-sized agenda tonight. And hopefully it'll be a non-controversial one. Let's start with the approval of the January minutes, please. They've been distributed, I believe. Everyone have a copy. Can I have a motion for approval of the January minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All right, corrections, additions, deletions, etc. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, Cheryl, read the abbreviated version, please, of the public hearing announcement for Dain's Lumber.
Okay. The Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, February 16th, 2023, starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, to consider the following application. Dain's Lumber, 3622 Route 9, Cold Spring, New York, 10516, tax map number 17.1-44. Major project. Applicant seeks to amend the conditionally approved site plan for use as a storage and retail facility, expanding the existing business, which is currently based in Peekskill. The application for amended site plan approval includes an initial phase in which a 7,000 square foot storage building would be constructed, along with an outdoor storage area, associated parking, a stormwater management practice, and landscaping. In this initial phase, the existing building, well, and septic system will be retained, and the building will be rented for residential use. Second, future phase would include removal of the existing residence and construction of a 10,500 square foot building in its place for retail and storage.
Okay, thank you. You want to give the abbreviated version of the overall story of this project?
Absolutely.
And then our purpose is here to hear the members of the public, but please just give a synopsis.
Absolutely. Adam Thyberg, Insight Engineering Surveying, Landscape Architecture PC, here representing the applicant, Dain's Lumber. I'm joined by the applicant, James Dain, and Stark Hip of Creighton Manning, the traffic engineer. This is an application for amended site plan. We have provided a couple of figures and some supplementary information comparing the existing approved project that was approved in 2021 and the currently proposed amended site plan. But for, as you mentioned, the benefit of the public, we'll do a quick summary of the project that's being proposed. So this is 3622 Route 9. The project, just for a quick summary, contemplates the construction of two buildings. One in the rear is a 7,000 square foot building. This would be used strictly as a warehouse or storage. It would store lumber, building materials for the applicant's existing business. The front building is a 10,500 square foot building, 5,000 square feet of which would be dedicated to contractor offices and storage that would be leased out. And the balance of that square footage, the remaining 5,500 square feet, would be a hardware store, a Dain's Lumber hardware store. Make sure that this is completely clear, this is not Home Depot, this is not Lowe's, this is a smaller neighborhood type hardware store. Pertinent to the two buildings, we've got two driveways currently. For those that are familiar with the site, there are three entrances onto the site. This site plan would organize those down into two. So we have two driveway entrances, and these are designed to New York State DOT standards. We have a current design approval on these driveways, and we're working through the rest of the process with DOT on that. Also, along with this project, we have the required parking. We have some utilities, a well that would be drilled, and a new septic system, stormwater management practices, and landscaping. Also, in addition to that, we also have an outdoor storage area that would be pertinent to the storage building in the rear. We have provided with our current submission. Would you like me to start going into the comparisons of the two?
Yeah, why don't you do that? That'd
Okay.
be helpful. Just to remind the public, again, I think you've said this. This is an already approved site plan for a space with a different applicant. So it's the same physical property, different usage, different structures, but same location as a previous one from a year ago, 2 years ago?
It was approved in
2 years
21.
ago. So that's what he's gonna compare it to the previous approval to this approval, okay?
Right.
Would you mind moving that back just like 2 inches? Sure. Nope, I mean the easel,
Oh, okay.
just the easel.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, perfect, yeah.
So, we were asked to provide some comparative studies of the, as the chairman mentioned, there was a project that was approved in 2021 and what we are currently proposing. So this first figure is one that was actually provided through the process of the original site plan that was approved in 21. There was some question about the scale and size of the proposed building. So this is essentially the same figure, except what it does is it shows in the red rectangle and hatch, it indicates the footprint to scale of the currently proposed building, and it's overlaid on other buildings of similar scale that are up and down Route 9 in this general vicinity. The blue that you see on the bottom is the additional square footage that would be taken up by the building that was already approved, by the 2021 plan building. So you can see the red building is, or the current building is smaller. So that is kind of a summary of this first comparison. The second figure that we produced compares a few other things. Again, you can see the footprints of, in red, the currently proposed set of buildings against, in blue, the 2021 approved set of buildings, and you can see a bit of the difference in the scale there. The blue line around the perimeter, or the blue and red lines around the perimeter, represent the approved area of disturbance. So this is essentially the area that is to be in some way developed as part of this project. So again, the blue being what's been approved, what was approved in 2021, and the red being the current area of disturbance associated with the current project. We've also shown well, I should say before I move on, the area of disturbance, we push and pull a little in different areas. You can see obviously where the red line is inside of the blue line. That's an area where we were going to have disturbance that we no longer will have. Where the red line goes outside of the blue line are areas that we didn't have as within the area of disturbance previously, and now we do. Net, we're at, the original project was about 3.8 acres of disturbance. This project, over the course of 2 phases, adds up to a total of 3.65 acres, I believe. So it's a bit less, and over the course of 2 phases. The third thing that this figure shows are trees. So in green, we've got trees that were indicated as to be removed under the original site plan. And in red, we've got trees that would be removed, that were not proposed to be removed in the original site plan. From there, we also provided in our cover letter a table that indicated another comparison. And in that, I do want to point out there was an error in that in the way that they were compared, and I can explain that. They just got compared. The numbers are correct. They just got compared. They got compared slightly incorrectly. So these are the currently proposed buildings. This is the building that would be in the rear of the property. This is the building that would be in the front of the building. The previously, just speaking specifically to building height, the previously approved, the 2021 plan, was a height of 24 feet 4 inches in the front. The currently proposed building, and this is where there was the mix-up, the currently proposed front building is 23 feet 8 inches, so a bit lower. The other thing to be aware of, as far as the height of these buildings, is that the previously proposed buildings, which I actually have the old plans, were a different style. You can see here they have a flat to slightly like single pitched roof. So the full height of that front building, the 24 feet 4 inches, is made up in the facade of the building. So there were some questions about what's the presence and how does this look from the street. Well, in this case, the front facade of the building went to that full height, the 24 foot 4, whereas in our current proposal, we have a gabled roof with a ridge line. So the front facade in this case is only 12 feet. And of course, then you get up to still lower than the previous building, but closer to that height in the pitch of the roof going to the peak. So that presence of having a 24 foot 4 inch facade will be a much different, it will be less than half the height of the facade that's proposed here. We have a similar comparison with the building in the rear. Again, it was that tall facade. That building was 21 feet 7.5 inches. This building is overall taller. It's 28 foot 8.5 inches. But again, the style of the building was somewhat different in that the full, 21 feet 7.5 inches is shown in that front facade of the building. Whereas in our proposed building, we have a front facade of 20 feet, which is lower. But then again, with the peak of the building, it does go up. This one building does go up higher overall than the other one. So that's kind of a summary of those different items. In addition to site-related, building-related comparisons, Stark from Creighton Manning also provided a summary of the comparison of the trip generation relative to the approved 21 plan to this plan, and I'm going to ask Stark to come up and just give a brief summary.
Good evening. For the record, Stark Hipp with Creighton Manning, traffic consultant for the project. Yes, we prepared a trip generation comparison letter that was provided to the board, comparing the trip generation estimates for the previously approved use and for this project before the board. Based on that comparison, we see that there's a reduction in the trips generated by the site of 16 trips in the morning peak hour and 12 trips in the evening peak hour. We also understand there is the board's attention to the types of trucks that would be coming to the site. The number of trucks would be similar between the two uses. The types of trucks, though, this use, according, based on discussions with James, with Mr. Dain, with the applicant, the deliveries that they would be seeing would mainly be box trucks or vans. They could see a tractor trailer, but the frequency of those deliveries would be every 1 to 2 weeks. So I think that summarizes our trip generation comparison letter. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has or that the public directs to the board.
Okay, typically, we haven't, I don't know why I'm not remembering this, Steve. Do we have the board ask questions, or we go right to the public at this point?
Usually you go to the public
Yeah.
at this point, and the board does later. You've varied from it occasionally, but generally that's what we
Well, I have a consistency problem. So, it's been a while. All right, members of the public who want to speak on this matter, raise your hands, please. Seems you went to that sort of the camera. All right, going once, going twice. Okay, let's have a motion to close the public hearing, and then we'll have board ask questions if we have no members of the public who want to speak. Motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the
Thank you.
motion.
Second? Good, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Okay. So, board members, questions, if any? No? Oh, Heidi, you want to ask something?
I couldn't see the trees. Which trees are the additional trees coming down?
The concentration of trees that, now, like I said, there are trees that were to be taken down with the previous that are no longer to be taken down. And then, of course, there are trees that were not shown to be taken down with the previous plan that are for this. And so there's a little bit of a balance. But the bulk of the trees that would be removed that were not previously are in this area here. So you can see the red dots.
So the big trees on the south side of the property are not coming down still?
We've got a few, and I want to be clear. I mean, there's a lot of trees, and certainly we can take a look at the plan. I don't want to speak to any one particular tree, but yes, the trees in this area here that have been shown to be preserved. There's a couple large pine trees and others. Those are shown to be. If you take a look at the existing conditions removals plan, the trees that are to be removed have an X on them, and you'll see the trees that are to remain, and they're the ones that I think we've been talking about to this point. Yeah.
Okay. Other board members' questions? Anything? All right, Ron, next steps?
Sure. The board has previously made necessary referrals. Obviously, tonight is the public hearing. You've got an EAF that was filed, a Part 1 that was filed by the applicant. To address seeker, I have provided to you a Part 2 EAF for your review and adoption. That could be done tonight or any subsequent time, but that's been available to you since last month. And upon the close of the public hearing and resolution of any comments you might offer, you could consider directing that resolutions be prepared for the next meeting.
Does anyone have any opposition to that approach?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say, Neil, is yes, you could do that, just by voice vote adopt a negative declaration based on the AF Part 2, but traditionally, the board has had a separate secret resolution prepared. You have to wait till next month to have your approval resolutions anyway. I would recommend that you wait, have a formal negative declaration resolution prepared rather than voting on that tonight.
Fine, I don't have a problem with that approach.
Yeah, what I was discussing was just adoption of the Parts 2 statement that you've had since last month, just for the record. Separately, you'd have to make a secret declaration on the entire EAF review.
Can we do that jointly next month, Steve?
Sure.
We'll do that jointly next month.
Okay, prepare, I'm just trying to stack these up for when we go to make the motions here. So what have we got so far?
We're not making any motions right now.
Okay,
I don't think so.
all right. Well,
No.
we need,
No, the
Not
only
yet.
thing you can do is, if you're so inclined, you can direct Ron to prepare the approval resolutions for next month.
okay.
I don't have a problem with that. Anyone okay with that? Yep, all right, fine. So let's have a motion to have Ron prepare the resolutions next month for our approval. May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Peter. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Laura. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Two abstentions. Okay, so let's do that. Thank you. We'll also do the secret declaration and.
Mr. Chairman, just one other item, if I may. We also provided a supplementary letter with regard to tree felling. And I want to make sure everybody has read that and is clear on what we're asking for. There is a restriction to tree felling between March 31st and, should I, are you?
I would say this board does not love, it's not your fault, of course, that what's the name of the bat?
Northern long-eared
long-eared
Yeah,
brown
okay.
bat.
Yeah, well, that's something I'm not going to be committing to memory in my tenure in this board. So that bat, we did not create the bat, but we also don't love to be held, not your challenge, held accountable and liable for figuring out how to do things ahead of, we've made approvals for things. I'll give an example on Route 403. We approved felling of some trees, and then the gentleman decided to sell the property anyway. So a whole bunch of trees were knocked down for no reason. And so generally, I just don't love approving things ahead of when we're actually done approving things.
Agreed.
So I understand why you want to do that and why your client would want such a thing.
Can I make a little counter argument? This applicant, as I think the board would appreciate, is looking to start construction on the first phase of this work this spring and be complete by the fall. And I believe this board to be your preference that you don't approve something, which it seems like you're going in the direction of doing next month, and having us come back for extensions and having projects sit. This is an applicant that is looking to move. Now,
I get that.
if we do not clear these trees by the 31st,
We get it.
this is going to be a
Yeah,
lengthy delay.
We get it. Look, we're appreciative of the situation, and is not certainly the first time we've had it, because obviously the bat didn't start coming here when your project was started. So look, I feel like we've done this a number of times. I don't love doing this. I'll take a sentiment of the board, since it's obviously a board. Folks have a viewpoint about whether we pre-approve tree removal ahead of the actual approval of the project. We don't have to have a lengthy debate, but for or against, or no opinion? I'll start with Heidi down in this end.
Always have to start with me.
Sorry, I won't. All right, Neil, I absolve you of your, go ahead.
No, this is tough, because we have, I mean, I'm all usually on board for saying we keep the application moving. I understand the duress that this rule causes. We've been burned by this before, though. We've had a whole bunch of trees come down that didn't have to come down. We tried to, and it just didn't work out. So I think we just sort of have to stick by the, let's go.
Let me just finish. Laura?
I'm in agreement with Neil.
Okay, Peter?
I do agree with Neil as well. I was wondering, can the project kind of progress around those trees that are
No.
at issue here?
It cannot.
So the trees are a sticking point.
Well, what if you just took the trees out for the first stage of the project?
That's more or less what we're asking to do. So again, the deadline is the 31st. I wonder, of March. I wonder if we're back next month, the project is approved, if we could at that point, notwithstanding any conditions of approval and building permits and anything else that might hold this up, if at that time a letter or whatever would need to be produced could be produced once you voted on the resolution, that, okay, notwithstanding whatever conditions of approval or whatever else, before the 31st, which will leave us about 2 weeks.
Ron.
Again,
Who the trees are then? Letter would go to whom?
go to building department.
Okay. Well,
He's the CEO. He's the CEO.
We're happy to put together a letter to that effect. If you want to write it, I can sign it too, or if we want to prepare that, why don't you prepare that ahead of time so we can sign that the same night? Sure. And I'll do that.
Great, all right.
Okay? All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
A couple of weeks to go.
We'll have, it'll be a squeaker, but we'll have time. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
great.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, stepping stones. So we had a site visit. Ron, you want to just remind us, since I think Laura wasn't there, Peter wasn't there, right? But maybe just remind us about what we did.
Yeah, it's a residential project, existing structure. They're proposing 2 wings, one on each side, south side and north side of the structure. There's significant regulated steep slopes, and there's also a regulated stream corridor that passes through the track. The significant areas of development are all within existing gravel areas that are used for parking or other access to the structure. The significant issue the board had was just a recognition that the Conservation Board is likewise involved. The applicant has since made application to the Conservation Board to initiate the review and approval from that agency. And I think the board would be interested to know the initial view of the Conservation Board before you move the project forward.
I'm sorry, say that last sentence again. The board with what?
I think you would be interested in knowing the initial comments of the Conservation Board
Oh, yes.
on the overall project before you move it forward.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And when do we think when are you going before the Conservation Board?
They went to the Conservation Board earlier this week.
Do we have notes on that?
Did you have any comments that you had heard from the Conservation Board?
No.
Okay.
Stepping stone, didn't?
Oh,
Didn't appear.
Stevenson did not appear for the con. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you on Kozlowski?
Yeah, I'm on Kozlowski.
All right,
I apologize.
all right, let's rewind. Okay, so Ron, we had the first one we did last Sunday was at the Stepping Stones, the
That's
childcare.
exactly right, yeah. The
Okay,
significant.
so let's start again.
I apologize
Can
for
you just
that.
rewind that, please? All right.
The Stepping Stone project, the significant concern was the proximity of residential structures in the residential zone adjacent to the commercial zone. The project itself is going to be developed within existing grassed areas. There's very little new construction aside from the building itself and the relocation of a playground area.
Right.
So there was concern about landscaping issues that had to be resolved. But presuming the applicant responds to those issues, you're prepared to move it forward. Again, you've made necessary referrals. You've also made a negative seeker declaration.
So do you have things to add to that?
Good evening, Brian from Watts from Days to Koza. Apologize, I was a last-minute replacement for Brian's to
Yeah, you don't look
Koza.
like the guy we were walking
No,
with on
no.
Sunday. I was trying to think, like, was I really out of it that Sunday morning, but I'm,
You were not.
good, thank
I got
God.
the 5-minute briefing 40 minutes ago.
great, so this is going to be very effective.
Well, I apologize for any lack of background information I
That's
have.
fine. Well, look, as we discussed there, we were discussing with your colleague about the notion of where would the playground go and how proximate would it be to the septic system, because the choices for where the playground would go neither seemed very good. One was going up a hill, and one was going down a hill. So I don't know if you have any, were there any adjustments to the plan since then?
We did make adjustments. Should I be taking this mic with me, or? Again, this was the plan as submitted to be on tonight's agenda. The existing cul-de-sac, existing building, existing parking. This is what we were proposing going into that site visit. New building up to the north, the existing parking, existing building, playground in this area, the septic system on the very northern edge of the property. We foiled the Board of Health for the 800 gallons per day capacity, and once after tonight, with some more direction, we're going to make a formal application to them to make sure we get everything in the records as required. Again, this is the existing tree line. We're proposing to supplement that with additional pine plantings. I believe the board requested architecture. We gave a brief, quick rendering to get that ball rolling. Nothing extravagant. Looks, I hope everyone agrees that looks okay.
I don't know if that's something we can just answer for you, but keep going. Okay.
So after the site visit, my understanding is we've investigated the idea of reorienting that building, which was originally proposed to be straight onto the cul-de-sac, and make it parallel to the building. We've moved it as far up as we can and as close to the existing building as we can to accommodate the proposed septic connection. About 25 feet between the buildings. Each one of these would go into a new septic tank before going out into the existing field. This blue line is the location of the existing playground, just for some proximity when you guys are out there. We could move the playground to this side of the building. We don't have it highlighted because we didn't want to get lost with all the line types and colors. The surveyor was going on site to locate, my understanding was there were some pine trees that were less than healthy in that buffer. He's going to locate them, we're going to get them on the survey, and we're going to replace those with something more substantive. So this buffer will be supplemented to a greater extent than it is for the noise.
All right, board members, questions or anything you want to add from Sunday's walk? Yes, please.
Well, it looks like now the playground will be closer to the neighbor's house, right? If you move the playground to the back, doesn't that mean it's gonna be a lot closer to the residents?
It'll be a little bit closer to this house down here, about up here. The final shape of that is, I mean, we're just showing it for now. We just wanted a direction from the board if they prefer this arrangement or the original arrangement. I have a side-by-side I can give you of those if you want to take it's just a rendering of this one next to this one so you guys can see it better up close, because this was not submitted with our submission for tonight's meeting.
Yes.
So I can give you a little small scale.
Thanks.
A1, thank you.
As Heidi identified, the playground was moved further back towards the little hillside. Do you have to cut into the hillside to do that playground?
On which,
So,
on the original proposal or the new one?
the new one has a playground, well, I don't know if it's a new one, the playground that would be to the rear of this building. Depending how far,
No, if we put it behind the building, when it's parallel and right close, we would have to cut somewhat into it. Yes, but we can, again, we're open to locating it over here, which is still flat between the parking spaces and the existing building.
I think that's what we're gonna have to just discuss and see. I mean, I know you're pinch hitting, so maybe that's what your colleague should just provide us some clarity, because that was the primary conversation at the site visit, was where would the playground go and what would it do? If it was in the front, closer to the cul-de-sac, they would have to be on a septic field or close to it. If it was in
Yes.
the back, it would have to cut into this hillside. So we just have to get some understanding of the magnitude of those two choices.
Okay. If it's on the side, I don't foresee us having to do any cutting here in between the parking and the, just minimal grading just to get it to the specs that we need.
Other questions on the board?
Is there a reason why the two faces, why the second rendering, why that building isn't pushed more towards the cul-de-sac? That was the conversation we had, was it was back and it was offset, which was cramping the playground section. So at the site visit, we said, well, if you just turn it parallel with the other building and then push it to the cul-de-sac, you'll have a lot more room for your playground, and everything's further away from your neighbor. So I guess the question is, why don't the faces line up?
The faces do not line up because we're trying to accommodate the existing septic system that's in the front. We have to have a certain separation distance from them. The building has to be 20 feet away from the fields, 10 feet away from the septic tank.
And you haven't got it.
Realistically, we're going to double check when the surveyor is out there getting those trees, the pine trees he's going to locate. We're going to try and get a more definitive double check on where we're showing the existing septic, but we believe we won't have enough room to get everything in there and still meet all setback requirements.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, I think you got a sense of what some of our questions are, just to clarify it, and so we're gonna, I'll ask for a motion on a public hearing, but at the next session, it'll be useful for your colleague to just give us the rundown on where these things are going and why, and that will be helpful.
So the board is definitely likes this
Well, I can't tell you if we definitely like it.
direction more than our application to the septic or to the Board of Health is going to depend upon if we keep the building in this arrangement or if we go back to the prior submitted arrangement. In this one, we're trying to connect to the existing septic tank without any other modifications. And our SWIP will also, right now we have a basic SWIP in with just the erosion sediment controls. All the drainage we're trying to work that out, but we need a definitive direction on if I'm laying the house out
Do
this
people on the
way or-
board have a strong opinion one way or the other? Go ahead.
Not really, no, it was just a suggestion, because when we did the walk, we were looking at the back, and it was getting pretty tight. We said, well, could you try this? So, it's not a hill anybody's gonna die on here, but we just thought it might be a better layout.
Heidi?
I would just say we should do whatever it takes to move it along as quickly as possible, because I've heard from many people that they're desperate to have their kids there, and
Well, there you go.
there's a terrible need. So, and I know that they're trying to open the new space by September, so just people I know have said, please, do what you can. We desperately need this.
So you guys make the best bet you can make, whatever you, and then you present that, and then we'll discuss it. We're gonna have a public hearing next month. So can I have a motion to schedule a public hearing, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Peter. Second? Second. All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. So next month, we'll have a public hearing on Stepping Stone. Yeah, you'll need a sign. Great.
So, apologize, I'm not familiar with the process. Will you reach out to us, or will we reach out to you, or? Okay,
Great. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Good job.
Ah,
All right.
not bad for a pitcher, huh?
Not bad for a pinch hitter. You got on base. All right, Kozlowski, sorry, how do you pronounce your last name, ma'am? Effle? Effle, okay. What is it again? Effle, okay, got it, Effle, okay. All right, Kozlowski and Effle. All right, Ron, you want to give us a summary on what we discussed at our visit?
Yeah, I think we've all heard it once, but this project is along South Mountain Pass. It's a very wooded site. There's a town-regulated stream that traverses it. There's also regulated steep slopes surrounding the existing residence. They're proposing to add 2 wings to the residence, one on the south side, one on the north. The south side is immediately adjacent to the regulated stream, will involve a permit from the Conservation Board. The wing to the north, or to the east, is actually for parking and some other related improvements. There'll be hallway connections to the existing residence. They're all within existing gravelled areas of the site. And as I was saying earlier, the Conservation Board had met earlier in the week to discuss the project with the applicant, and they may have comments to offer tonight.
Yeah, Jason, I think the only thing you need to comment on is if anything came out of the Conservation Board. I don't think we need a repeat of the whole project.
There were no comments.
What?
There were no comments.
All right, well, there you go.
We did have we did schedule a meeting for a site walk for March 11th.
Okay.
So we'll come back. I mean, you don't want to be.
We want what?
Do you want me to go over any of Ron's?
No.
Okay.
I mean, unless, Ron, do you need him to respond?
No, he's got need to make plan revisions as appropriate, but
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that we can submit for
Right.
next month.
Well, we're gonna have a public hearing. I think we can go ahead and have a public hearing next month. I'm not sure that you have substantive changes you're gonna be making that preclude a public hearing.
No.
Okay. Board members, any comments from the site walk you want to add, or anything about Ron's memo you want to augment? None? Go ahead.
I'm trying to keep track of the process here. So you're saying that we're going to have a public hearing next month? We're ready for that?
Well, the question, do we imagine major changes in their plan?
Possibly.
Okay.
And we talked about this Sunday, all right? You've got substantial disturbance in the wetlands next to a Class C stream. And I mean, I watched the meeting with the Conservation Board, and I think you saw their reaction was similar. You are looking to dig in a Class C stream. And, you know, it's very much a red, yellow, green situation. That's the way I always try to think of it. You know, if you're in the wetlands, it's red. If you're in the buffer zone, let's talk about it. If you're in the green, you know, you're good. And you're in the red. So this also brings up an element of precedent, because we've had several applications with nice properties and they want to build something right on the water, and we've had to say, well, no, you have to back it out of the buffer. So I get that it's historical. I get that it's good design. I know it's a Frank Dushan house. You know, we hear things, well, it's going to be very green build, and that's all great. You're in the wetlands, and there's disturbance. You're going to have to be digging out the old wall like we talked about and putting in pilings. And so I'm not sure that this is such a done deal with the Conservation Board.
Do you want to wait for the Conservation Board site visit and then get a
I have
report?
a feeling I have a feeling you're going to get a similar sentiment, or you could get a similar sentiment from the Planning Board.
Well, we don't need to do the
Or
same.
from the Conservation
We don't need to do the same work twice, so that's up to them. Folks, I know you two were not able to join us. Heidi, similar view?
I
Okay.
agree, yeah. It's awfully close to the stream.
Okay, so let's wait for it sounds like the sentiment of the board then is we'll wait for the Conservation Board to provide their views which would come out of their March meeting. So my guess is we will not hear from them formally at our March 16th meeting. So, yeah, so I think we may have to wait then to pick up the issue. We certainly could ask Cheryl for a letter from the Conservation Board to give us the results directly to us of what they see and hear. And depending on what that is, we can then discuss at our March 16th meeting whether, well, we can't do, we'll have to wait till the April meeting, I guess. Other board members' comments on that? I know you weren't there, but I don't know how you feel about the commentary of Heidi and Neil.
No comments.
No comments.
No, sounds like it's prudent and smart to me.
All right, Jason, you want to protest that? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think a March 16th meeting here would be beneficial,
What are
just,
we going to meet about? I guess is what we're saying. We need to hear the Conservation Board's results, and they're a volunteer board like ours, so we're not
right,
going
they're
to
not gonna, right.
we're not going to make anything to talk
got you.
about except to say, how's it going?
I got you.
Great donuts. You know, like, I don't know what
Yeah.
else to talk about.
right.
So, and so that's not intentionally, or that's not meant to harm you. It's like, I think Neil was right. We're in a sea, so we're in a stream. We don't know what the results are. That's why we have a Conservation Board. You were trained very well by Glenn. I understand that.
So you're leaving this,
I'll repeat what I said, which
you're
is,
leaving this up to the Conservation Board is what?
well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. What is it in your
So
viewpoint?
the citing of the
gonna wait.
additions.
Oh, let me ask something. Steve Gaba, can you describe, please, the remit of the Conservation Board, please, sir?
The Conservation Board is going to take a look at the appropriate actions for a wetlands permit. If they say that the building needs to be located elsewhere in order to get a wetlands permit, that's going to affect how this board views your site plan application.
And so since that is the one issue that was raised at the site visit of any matter, any meat, I think Neil Tillman's suggestion is thoughtful and the appropriate one. And the sentiment of the board is such to wait, so.
Is there anything else that is of concern to the board that
Ron,
we
what
can
else
address?
came out in the memo?
We got the trees. We did have the 6-inch trees located on the map that you were looking at the site walk. So we did have 6-inch trees. We're gonna,
In the farther area.
right, so we didn't have any trees there. So we're gonna expand that. I believe that was already done, and we can provide that with the tree removals tabulated for the next. I know that we're not gonna meet, but we can submit it regardless.
Absolutely. Happy to take the submission. Other things that were raised, Ron?
No, they were mostly environmental concerns. It was significantly just for the board's understanding. While there's significant steep slopes in the area, they're not being, for the most part, impacted by the proposed project. The project itself is beyond that. The sanitary disposal areas are all within appropriate areas of the site that are not regulated.
Okay. All right, so anything else then? I think we'll have to unfortunately wait till the April meeting of the planning board to have a meaningful next step. Okay? You have to use the mic.
Oh, sorry, just a question for clarification. Clarification. Since the house sits within the wetland buffer today, the entire property does, including the pool, kind of all of it, was the concern primarily to the structure that is sitting next to the brook, or the other disturbed area that the second building, I guess it's the east, is that in any way a concern?
I haven't stared at the
What's that?
map. Ron, can you just find which pieces are within the buffer versus actually in the wetlands?
Yeah, right. The buffer obviously extends from the stream. It totally encompasses the westerly addition, which is the study area, and the two-bedroom addition. The garage itself may infringe on the buffer, but it may likewise be outside of the buffer itself. The primary concern relates to the two-story bedroom addition.
Jason, would you trace out the wetland buffer for us with a pen or something? Show us how it cuts through there. So it's still,
To about right here.
yeah.
So we got, I would say most of the garage, it's about the same. the additions to the house, the hallway, the bathroom, and then the main part of the garage and gym, it's about split.
And I again watched the Conservation Board, they started with the, they want to wrap, the first question always with the Conservation Board is, where else can you put it? That's somewhere else, so.
I mean, just to be clear, I believe that they alluded to the fact that the planning board may want us to look at.
Well, let's not, I don't want to hear like they
I'll
alluded to
watch-
something.
I'll
We-
watch it again, but.
I think that's fine. I think for the purpose of time,
Yeah,
I was
look,
like,
I think the
if
only-
we're going to have our architects start looking into the things, the question is, do we have to look at, and, because the only way we're gonna connect to this building is it's just hard, right?
Mr. Kozlowski, all I can say is the following. We have these multiple boards in this town.
Right.
The board that my esteemed colleague, Mr. Gav, explained to you, their job is to look at wetlands. Let's hear what they have to say, and I don't think we have any more things to share on that topic. And we certainly don't want to guide you. If you want to have your architect create a lot of versions, God bless you and your wallet, but for...
Yeah, well, that's my question, kind of, ultimately.
I'm not going to tell you, we're not going to tell you to do any additional look until the Conservation Board gives their viewpoint.
Can I ask it a different way?
Of
just
course.
To help clarify? Does the planning board have
Please come to the
concern-
mic, though. I know my friend
Oh,
is
sorry.
gonna get
Does
out.
the planning board have a concern, having seen the area and done the site walkthrough in this area? I know
Yeah, that
this
was the whole
area
point,
is
I think.
sensitive, but does this area that's previously a disturbed area, does that have a concern with the planning?
Is that the area that you would have the, whatever you're
The
describing?
little raised parking section? Oh, sorry, no, this is the area that is, as you
Okay.
come down the driveway, it's where the.
I don't remember us having a problem with that. Was that in the buffer? What was that in,
Well,
Ron?
it's-
The
Most of
garage?
it's not, but there's a bit that is.
Did anyone have an issue with that?
I thought the area Neil was talking about was where they were gonna tear
He-
the wall
he is.
down and
He's-
put that
Yeah.
raised thing.
He's asking about the other wing.
Yeah, I'm asking if there's an issue with the other
The
section.
other wing, which is still
From the
partially in the buffer.
Well, yeah, there's a,
Yeah.
if we're gonna connect it to the existing building,
Okay.
that's.
I know you want, I understand what you're trying to do, which is you want,
Yeah.
can you just,
Guidance.
I think we've given you all the thing we do. Let the Conservation Board give us their view, and we'll come back. I appreciate you trying to get ahead of the problem.
I'm just trying to focus.
I got it. It makes sense. Okay, Garrison Golf Course Club, PDD, Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. Welcome back. Come on up. Ron, you want to give us a summary of where we are? A reminder?
I think Aaron will be there for that.
Oh, Aaron, you want to give it to us?
I can
Aaron, give us a
start.
reminder where we are.
Sure. So back in November, the board adopted a scoping document for the draft environmental impact statement. Between then and a couple weeks ago, they prepared that document as a preliminary draft, it's called. So right now, we're in what's called the completeness review stage, where upon submission, you have 45 days as lead agency to determine the adequacy of the document in terms of the adopted scope. It doesn't mean it's everything's perfect, but does it meet the requirements of the scope? Did they do everything the scope said? There'll be a subsequent comment period for more substantive comments on the analysis, which will happen when the document goes public. Currently, it's really just in front of you for a review of completeness, and you've directed Ron and I to provide comments within that 45-day window, which puts us at the next meeting. We're going to have a memo prepared by March 6th that will still give you some time to review it before that meeting, give the applicant some time to review it, and we can discuss it at the March meeting. But we don't have any comments tonight.
Okay, Steve, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, this isn't the first DEIS that the board has reviewed, but just to, go over it really quickly. The completeness review is, you have two large binders before you to look through. Every board member should look through them. And what you do is you take a look at the scope, and you see all the items that were supposed to be addressed in the DEIS. And then you take a look at the responses and the analysis they gave in the DEIS. Make sure that everything in the scope has been addressed in the DEIS. And you take a look at substantively how they were addressed. You don't have to agree with what they say,
Right.
but the response as far as the potential significant environmental impact and how it's being mitigated or doesn't need to be mitigated should be a substantive response. It should be something that makes sense. It should be something that's documented. If it's not something that makes sense or something that is not documented, the board will be in a position to reject the DEIS as incomplete. On the other hand, if everything in the scope has been addressed in a reasonable and substantive way, then the board should accept the DEIS as complete. The next step will be to schedule a public hearing on it, and then after that, we'll proceed to an FEIS and a finding statement.
Okay. And so tonight's expectation is to accept the, acknowledge the receipt of it, and then do we have to direct Ron to conduct the completeness study?
Yes, acknowledge receipt and direct that Aaron and Ron provide you with a memo as far as whether it should be accepted as complete.
Okay, let's turn to the applicant. Sir, why don't you just remind us your name and your standing, and then whatever you want to, maybe you guys can give us a little tour of what's in the document?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Adam Stellero with the law firm Sy, Paget, and Rizal. I represent Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival and Garrison Properties LLC, who are the applicants on this project, seeking site plan approval and subdivision. Aaron and Steve basically took all the things I was going to say, queuing this up procedurally, so thank you for that. And
no reason to repeat them then.
No reason to repeat them. So as they mentioned, we're currently in a review period for completeness, and so we'll be seeking a determination from the board at the next planning board meeting that the DEIS is complete. So here to cue that up tonight is Jan Johannesson from Kellard Sessions, who's going to walk through sort of the highlights of what's new in the DEIS as compared to what you've already seen in the prior EAF studies that were completed last year.
All right, Jan.
Good evening. Jan Johannesson, Kellard Sessions Consulting. We are the primary author of the DEIS, although backed by an awesome design team, a lot of technical expertise on the design team that helped put this together. The DEIS has 6 or 7 chapters ranging in topics that are included in the scoping document. And I thought I know you haven't done a deep dive on this, but I'd share the highlights or the cliff notes on each of those chapters, just as you start going through the document to have in the back of your heads. The introduction or project description is several pages. It's very, very thorough, but the big takeaway there is the changes in the project. And that is, number one, going from a white tinsel style tent to the permanent rigid typical wood frame construction, the permanent theater. The previously proposed entrance or new entrance off Snake Hill Road and the span bridge has been removed from the project. We're proposing to continue to use the existing driveway off Snake Hill Road. And the third is we had proposed previously to drill a new well. And after further evaluation, we're going to be converting the existing irrigation well, well number 8, to a potable water well. And we can demonstrate, or have demonstrated through the 72-hour pump test, that we have more than enough capacity to do that. So there will not be a new well drilled, with the exception of the well for the private residence on the residential lot. The first chapter that appears in the DIS is the vegetation and wildlife chapter. And we start off by giving an overview of the previous studies that have been conducted to date.
Can I just pause you for 1 second, just for my colleagues' benefit? The way you've organized this, as I can tell, is in Volume 2, Appendix B is the scope that we had put together.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it is. And so I want, for those of you who are following along in the books, I see Heidi's guide, just if you want to follow what is being said right now, it's again in Volume 2, Appendix B, Section D. And I think it's just important because there's a lot here. It's not the first page of the first.
Right, and I'm not
where you'd think it would be in the front. So it's buried it's in Volume 2, Appendix B is the summary.
Correct.
Of course. That's why I'm saying it. That's why I interrupted Jan, so I could remind everyone that it's not as obvious. So keep going, Jan.
Okay. And I'm not going to hit every single item that's in the scope. I'm hitting the highlights for you. you're running such an efficient meeting. I know you're going to get out of here quickly. I don't want to take up too much.
Well, our hourly rate goes up the shorter the meeting is, so.
Perfect. So we do an overview of the ecological assessments that were previously conducted by RES, and we explain all the ecological communities that exist on site. And it's important to note that some of the more highly valued ecological communities that were previously assessed and documented have actually been conveyed already to the Hudson Highland Land Trust. We give an overview of the threatened, endangered, and special concern species or lack thereof on the property. As required, we deployed 6 wildlife cameras for a period of 3 months. The cameras took over 1,100 photographs of wildlife, including 9 different types of mammals and 14 different types of birds. There were no surprises. We didn't document or capture an animal that we didn't already know was there. And the level of nocturnal wildlife on the site is fairly low. None of the animals that were photographed are protected under state or federal laws. We provided some sample photographs. Again, we took thousands of them. We could provide all of those photos to you if you wished, or to your staff, but there are tables within the DEIS that concisely summarize everything that we encountered. Not a surprise, the most captured species or prominent species on the site is the white-tailed deer, followed by the coyote, and as I mentioned, the overall diversity of nocturnal wildlife is low. Wetlands and watercourses follows that chapter. We again go over the various wetlands on the property and jurisdiction. We discuss impacts, if any, to the lowering of the pond by 4 feet, which has already occurred, as was approved by the DEC. This is evaluated as an existing condition because it's already occurred and has been permitted. And RES, as they document in the report, actually feels that the lowering of the pond by 4 feet has a very high potential for actually increasing the ecological benefit, mainly due to exposing the shoreline and being able to provide significant more amount of emergent vegetation, which would provide habitat. The project has no wetland disturbance. There's no disturbance to the wetland proper. And we have 13,000 square feet of wetland buffer disturbance compared to 1.59 acres of wetland buffer disturbance in the prior application. This is mainly due to the removal of Snake Hill driveway and the bridge, and we pulled back the parking lot out of the buffer. So some significant improvements there. Mitigation for wetland buffer impacts come down to preservation of open space, the rewilding of the golf course, and we've provided a formal wetland mitigation plan and planting plan around the pond area. From a utility perspective, that chapter deals with water, sewer, and energy. I believe we hit all of the items in the scope in this chapter, but I'm sure your main focus is going to be on the water. Just for numbers perspective, the existing water demand or design flow, really design flow, for the existing condition is 5,906 gallons per day. We compare that to the 2005 PDD, which was 12,728 gallons per day, and then the proposed action, Phase 1 and Phase 2, after full build-out, 13,473 gallons per day. And we go into some detail about these numbers and these calculations and how super conservative they are. These are not consumption numbers. They're design flow numbers that are stipulated by the DEC They have a book of multipliers that you have to use to design your septic systems and water systems. And they, by their nature, are very conservative. You basically compute gallons per day. You multiply that by 365 days a year, and you come out with your number. It takes no account or reductions for the intensity of use, the hours of operation, or the seasonality of the use. So our proposed design flow at 13,473 gallons per day is extremely conservative and assumes all on-site uses are in full operation at the same time every day, all day. Regardless, our 72-hour pump test uses this very conservative number. And the 72-hour pump test, that report is appended to the DEIS and demonstrates more than enough capacity. But I want just to stress the conservative numbers. The pump test was performed on 2 existing on-site wells, wells number 1 and number 8, with a goal to determine whether these wells would meet the design demand of 8.5 gallons per minute, with the larger producing well out of service. There's a variety of existing wells on the property. We used on-site wells numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9 as observation wells for testing of influence. And we monitored 12 nearby off-site wells for influence during the pump test. Wells number 1 and 8 were pumped at a constant flow rate of 29.3 and 28.7 gallons per minute, respectively. Combined, that is more than 6 times the maximum proposed demand. Of the 12 private wells monitored during the test, 5 exhibited no influence. The remaining 7 wells exhibited some influence due to the induced drawdown during the pumping period. However, their water levels were quickly recovered to the precondition test rate following the completion of the test. The influenced domestic wells did not exhibit drawdown such that water capacity or quality was significantly impacted. No wells were in jeopardy of going dry. Operational demand on HVSF's wells will be significantly less than during the test, and thus on-site influence will be significantly less than during the test. The report concludes that HVSF's test wells were individually capable of meeting the anticipated...
I'm sorry. You sound like you're giving us all the results of the...
I'm trying to give you a little bit of information so you don't have to do such a deep dive. This is the most technical one, and I'm almost done with it.
I don't want you to just reading us the whole book, because we're going to have to read the book anyway.
But the book's going to take you a long time to read.
You can say whatever you're going to say. We're going to have to still do our diligence. So the purpose of tonight is about completeness of the material, not its findings. So
I was trying to give you a little prelude.
I appreciate that, but my guess is my colleagues are looking at these 2 volumes and saying, I got a lot of homework to do. And so the first order of business is on completeness. So
if I'm just going to go through it, I'm almost done.
Okay.
I'm going to hit the highlights, and hopefully you remember some of them, and you don't have to do such that.
Okay, we're going to have to do it anyway.
Okay. I know you're going to read everything.
Okay. I promise you, all of us are going to read it.
And did you already, are you done with the wells? Because I was just wondering, what happened with the uphill well, with the, not necessarily on the site, but I thought one of the concerns was what's going to happen to from the wells that are hot.
The off-site wells?
Yeah, the off-site wells are higher ground, yeah.
And I think
Okay.
that is
I didn't
a
mean to
technical aspect I don't
Okay.
want to misspeak on, and I'll allow Paul to go through at the next meeting. But the bottom line is there's more than enough water to serve the property. We did prepare a new updated traffic report. It's appended to the DEIS. And this goes through all the same evaluations as the prior report, but we use updated data, which was required of us to obtain during the 2022 performance season, which time we took traffic counts and parking counts during multiple occasions when there was simultaneous events. All the same mitigation that was previously proposed, the traffic lights, the turning lanes, the traffic light, the turning lanes are still part of the project. Visual, we took new leaf on and leaf off photographs at the same 10 locations. We provided photo simulations with and without mitigation, so you can understand the visibility or lack thereof of the project. We provided a photometric plan, retained a lighting expert. Previously, we gave you some kind of perspectives of what we thought the lighting might be, but we have an actual lighting plan, photometric plan that's in the package. And lighting is really limited to what's necessary for safety. It's very light. We did further analysis on headlights and impact from vehicle headlights. We flew a drone during a dual, a performance and an event at the Garrison, and we captured real images of the vehicles leaving the site, entering the road. Those pictures are included in DIS, and they're very similar to the photo simulations that we had provided in the EAF, but they're actual images. We graphically represented the difference in height between the Boscobel tent, the previously proposed tent, and this new structure. And the structure is the smallest of the three. We completed a new noise study. We took data as required during a 2022 performance. We redid the entire analysis. And the big takeaway there is the theater, being of typical construction, holds in a lot of the sound, and the numbers really went way down. We are 100% compliant with the code. You'll recall we had that one receiver in the previous version under the prior project, receiver 3, that we weren't compliant with. We had to provide mitigation to provide compliance, and that's no longer applicable because we're so far below the town's noise ordinance. And we did the hypothetical concert as well. You'll see that in there.
Just as an FYI, I just read that paragraph. I didn't really understand what it said. So I'm going to give it another couple of reads, and hopefully I'll better understand the second or third time.
Which paragraph was that?
The one you just cited, the hypothetical concert.
Okay.
So I'll probably have some questions on it at some point.
Okay. Human health, recall we did the phase 1 and the phase 2 under the prior EAF. We completed the phase 3 ESA that's appended to the DEIS, and conducted soil sampling at 8 of the greens. And we did, within each of the greens, we conducted 7 soil borings. And within each of those 7 soil borings, we took soil from a range of 0 to 18 inches and evaluated that soil. We looked at 10 other locations, including fairways and roughs, and evaluated those as well. In all, 66 separate site locations, 110 soil samples were collected and analyzed. The reports appended to the DEIS. And really, with few exceptions, the soil with constituents above the standards were limited to the upper 6 inches, really just in the greens only. Upper 6 inches of soil in the greens only, with few exceptions, and that's in there. And the alternatives, of course, were the no action, evaluating the prior tent, and evaluating the prior Snake Hill Road driveway and bridge. And I think you'll have the same conclusion as us, is that the proposed action is less impactful than those alternatives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, at this point, I think it's time. Do we need a motion to acknowledge receipt? Seems like a...
Technically, you do. I think just the board, I mean, if you want to, vote on acknowledging receipt.
It seems
you can, but
ridiculous.
I mean, it's right there in front of you. So just,
Yeah, I know, it's
ask
here.
for
I don't,
the,
do we,
Just asking, you know?
Okay. Just ask for a memo from your consultants for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I'd like a motion to direct Ron and Aaron to conduct our completeness review for us. So can I have a motion? Thank you. Peter, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions. Okay, thank you very much. You're going to have that to us. Aaron, want to just remind us the timeline on that?
Yeah, so we're planning it for March 6th, so in advance of the next meeting, so have it 10 days prior, take a look at it, and we can talk about it at the meeting. And if you have any comments yourself that you want to bring up at the next meeting, write them down and present those too, and we'll discuss them all at that time.
Oh,
To the extent that we get comments as we're going or early, we'll do our best to try and address those by the time of the next meeting so that we can, shoot to get a completeness.
yeah, good, good. All right, anything else to add, gentlemen? No, good. All right, thank you very much. All right, new business, Bach Veterinarian Hospital.
Can I just say, Dr. Bach is my vet, but I believe I can be fair and objective in listening to the application.
She's saying she uses the vet.
Well, yeah, Dr. Bach is
It's
the vet.
It's not on retainer or anything, you don't have a contract.
Well, no, I'm not, I go to an actual human doctor, but just for my cats. Yeah, I'm just saying, I just wanted to know that,
That's not a problem.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ready? Hi, James Hartford from River Architects, speaking for Dr. Bach. I think in full disclosure, probably half the people in this room, their pets use their services, as do my dogs. So the issue is that they have been intent on locating their veterinary practice into their existing garage with no change whatsoever to the outside. And the square footage of the garage is approximately 400 square feet, and that falls well within the threshold of the home occupancy requirements. It really follows by the letter the outline of the home occupancy requirements spelled out in section 175-41. So really, we're not here for a special use permit. There's no need for a special use permit because it complies with what is referred to in the code, subsection 175-41, home occupations, Article 1. Home occupation as use permitted by right. Home occupations shall be permitted uses if they are in compliance with the following criteria and standards. A, B, C, D, E through H, we comply. So really, I feel like we're here just to make that clarification to you and address any outstanding issues. But I don't see how this at all crosses the threshold. The next section of 175-4.
Can we not do the whole citation? If you're going to just say why you don't need to be here, let's just let the lawyer then talk about why you do, because clearly there's a disagreement. So, because we're not submitting evidence here. So, I don't know if Steve, you want to comment?
We went over this at the pre-application meeting. The determination was that this does require, it's a veterinary use, does require a special use permit. If you disagree with that determination, you can appeal to the ZBA. If you don't, then you can proceed with your special use permit application, but the planning board's not going to be in a position to tell you you don't need a special use permit.
Steve, Mr. Gaba, it's interesting to me because when I was the building inspector of the village of Cold Spring, you had advised me when I was dealing with the special use contention that was applied to Seth Gallagher and his so-called factory. So the ultimate determination was that was a home occupancy, and I know it's a different jurisdiction than the town of Philipstown, but it's a good illustration. And the point that you had made to me in advising me as a code official was that you can't pick and choose different parts of the zoning code to meet your argument. You have to stick to one. And this 175 is a clear outline of what constitutes a home occupancy and when a special use permit is triggered. And it also actually spells out, so it's as of right, but under certain circumstances, it triggers a special use permit, which is in Article 2, which I was going to cite, where it says if it exceeds those thresholds spelled out in 1. It doesn't exceed those thresholds, so no special use permit is required.
Yeah, can I speak to that for just a minute? And it's covered in our technical memorandum that the board's previously seen. The project, the site is in an OC zone, office, commercial, industrial, mixed use zone. Within that zone, the use is deemed as a veterinary hospital. That category all by itself in that zone specifies that a special use permit is required. Now, it also does have to comply with the home occupation requirements of your zoning code, and that is in section 17541. But home occupations relate to any number of things that you could conduct within your premises. And as Mr. Harvard indicates, in that section of the home occupancy code, they do have criteria by which certain thresholds have to be exceeded before you qualify for the need to have a special permit. But in and of itself, a veterinary hospital is defined in your use table as requiring a special permit, and so one is required. And that's what.
Stop here. So here's the thing. We pay these gentlemen to advise this board. So if you disagree with these two gentlemen about what they think they're advising us on, the only avenue I can imagine is to appeal to the zoning board of appeals. We're not going to disagree with our two advisors here because we have nothing other than to turn to them for the very very opinion they're giving us. So it sounds like you're unsatisfied with what they're suggesting. And so I suggest.
Does it sound reasonable? I mean,
stop. I'm not a judge. We're not going to adjudicate between the two of you. This is our town lawyer. He is advising us. He says you need a special use permit. Our town engineer says the same thing. So what are we to do other than say, what do you guys, literally, I would just say, what do you guys think? And they're going to tell you the same thing. So we're sort of in a little loop here. So that you have a choice. You either do exactly as they suggested. You either let us process it or you go to the ZBA. Otherwise, I don't know how to, I can't just say, no, you don't need it.
Well, for the expediency of moving this forward, obviously, let's do this in parallel.
Okay. Well, what do you mean in parallel?
We will appeal it to the ZBA.
Then you should just do that, dude. I mean,
but we've got an application in front of you.
You
want to do that?
I mean, although Ron and I think we're right, we feel we're right, we read the code, we're pretty confident. You know, look.
Was it a good use of town resource
to do things differently? The ZBA may see things differently.
But is it worth the town resource to do double duty on the same application? That doesn't sound like a good use of our time.
I don't disagree with you on that, but
I actually don't think that's the right use of our time, because if we have two boards in parallel processing the same application, that seems like a waste of one board's time. So I think you should decide what you want to do, sir.
Then let's proceed with the special use permit in front of you.
Okay.
If we can get specific, the impact of requiring a special permit merely drives the need to have a public hearing. So that's going to be moving forward in any degree, in any.
Well, he's got to meet the
event.
special permit criteria too.
Right. Yes, but it's within an existing premises. They won't have a difficult time to do that. But you have to follow the process for the special permit.
Okay. So should we start all over again with what the project is? Because I think we got started on why it should not have a permit. I think we should just start all over, like, what are you trying to get done?
So clearly, the Cold Spring Animal Hospital, as the name implies, which is really truly a small clinic, is before you to have a special use permit for locating a home occupancy in the existing garage. No change to the exterior.
So do we have enough information at this point?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You're happy with the survey? That's okay?
Well, there's technical issues that have to be addressed, but the application has been filed and has necessary data for you at least to evaluate it. And again, this is the initial appearance of the applicant before the board. There's certain statutory or administrative things you typically do. They can move forward.
All right, so let's go through a minor project, obviously.
Right.
Type 2, secret action. What else we got to do? Referrals?
Listed secret action.
What's that?
It's an unlisted secret action.
Oh, all right.
There's referrals to be made to county planning and county health just for the additional use being proposed for the premises.
Okay.
And then typically you determine whether you wish to have a site inspection to evaluate site-specific impacts. That the proximity of the property to nearby New York State designated wetlands by itself may warrant an inspection.
Yeah, all right, let's go through them. Can I have a motion, please, to classify this as a minor project? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, great. Do we need to declare an unlisted action? It is an unlisted, no.
No, you need to declare it
Okay,
unlisted.
can I have a motion to declare this an unlisted secret action, please? Thank you. Laura first, Peter second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Let's get referrals, please, to both county planning and county health for this project. Can I have a motion to that effect, please? Thank you, Laura. Second. Thank you, Peter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Okay, site inspection, I don't, what do we think here? We're putting it inside, it's a garage, it's in a garage. There's no new structures being built, I assume. So it doesn't seem like that's I mean, you think we should?
Again, the only issue is again, it's totally surrounded by New York State designated wetlands. That would be something for you to decide. Let's say it's not mandatory that
Are
you
there
have
any
one.
things that are being
There,
done to the soils, or?
No, it is outside of the wetland buffer zone as indicated on the map, and it's they're locating a small freezer refrigerator to the outside temporary structure.
We're talking about parking and how many people are coming to visit?
There's adequate parking by the conditions of well, as spelled out by home occupancy. It's limited to one employee at a time, and they anticipate no more than one customer at a time.
Right. So parking is adequate for the site.
Okay. Site visit thoughts? Anyone? Neil?
Yeah.
You'd like to do something?
I'd like to go see what, I'm interested in this dynamic, so I'd like to take a look.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, other thoughts on a site visit?
I would like to have a site visit, but I would also just, maybe we could do it at the same time as we kind of push the project forward, because we otherwise have
we'll
no
do-
animal hospital here.
Well, I don't know, is this the one on Route 9?
Well, it's the one that used to be next to the drugstore, and now we don't have any.
What's the one that I go to that's up?
Between Yen and Helen.
I go to Companion, so there's still another one. I mean, it's technically Fishkill, but, I mean, it's not one only. Yeah, anyway. So, let's just go back. We're gonna do this at the same course we do this. I'm sure you'll have adequate veterinary support.
I mean, I can't drive.
I just don't know how to do
so-
it any earlier than we do the next couple weekends. So site visit.
Okay.
I always love site visits.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys, that's ridiculous how you matched tonight. It's very cute.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
You didn't notice it?
Mine's a
How
little better.
did you not notice it? That's amazing. All right. Anyway, all right, so that sounds like you want a site visit. Give a motion for a site visit, please. All right, second. Okay, Cheryl?
March 5th or the 12th?
Okay. Well, Neil, you were the first one who wanted one. How's March 5th?
I'm traveling one of the, no, the 5th is fine.
5th is fine.
The next
Others?
week I'm traveling.
3-5?
Yes, 3/5, March 5th. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. How does it work for you and your applicant? Doctor?
March 5th.
Great. Yes, Sunday at 9:30 a.m. I guess it's at home? You'll be home? Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Other things, Steve?
Referral to the fire company, maybe?
Sure. Do we need, folks think we need a referral to the fire department?
You don't need to, but sometimes you do a courtesy.
But it's an existing house. That we're not,
The thing I could think of.
what? Yeah, I get it. Does that, do you think they just want to walk over? Okay. You got, fine. We'll make, others want, ask for a motion to refer to the fire department. Get a motion on that? Anyone? No one wants to move it. Sorry. No interest in that one.
Is it too early to consider a public hearing?
It's for the board, I mean, you need to have a
I think we
public
gotta
hearing.
finish our site visit first. To schedule a public hearing before we go visit the site.
It's up to you.
I don't know. I'll let democracy rule. Anyone wanna move that? I think that's it. No, I think, no. Okay, sorry. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else? Okay, we will see you on March 5th, I think was the date.
Great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being direct about what your needs are. All right, any new business for the board? Hearing none, motion to adjourn? Okay, thank you very much.